So.
I got our bumper sticker.
Coming back. Okay. Now, was that in the same house that you Dr. Zoe got? Oh, okay, all right.
They had another chair.
Okay. That's Becky and Robbie and
No, this ain't a banana. Chicago so long. No, well, I know that. Elliot, yeah. I just want to. And I'm Elliot Jr. That's right. That's right. He said I had to need a brain. I'm going to say you got from there.
He's running wide. He's got.
Elliot caught that girl in school.
Could I have everybody's attention a minute, please? Excuse me for interrupting. We want to record all of this too. So, what we'd like to do, we're glad everybody's here. I'm glad to see some men show up. What we'd like to do is, we want y'all to just, each one to get up and have a say of what they want to talk about or anything. Everybody has their own subjects and stuff. I know for myself, I have a few subjects I want to bring up to let y'all talk about. So if we can too, let's kind of keep it where one's telling a story. Let him go ahead and tell a story, and then somebody else want to add to it or change it. Then we'll change it.
In other words, you want to get it all down page by page.
You're right.
Good God. I think that's about it. Oh, what I would like to do, if anybody minds, don't do it. But we'd like to, I know Gary wants it too, is we could go around getting each person's name and their age, if they don't mind.
We can say
Well, I tell you, in that case, all the women can lose their men.
But again on this, we wanted to record all this for the history. Your kids and your grandkids and your grandkids and grandkids and all of that might want to know about all this one day.
Yes, all of these old people will be gone, but you'll still have it down.
That's right. Okay. Where do you want to start?
Start with
Mr. Smith right here.
Yeah, there you go. Stephen, why don't you come up?
Oh, I'm 84. I'll be 82 years old in May. Born and raised in Lewisburg and moved over in Lewisburg Swamp for the last 50, 60 years.
And you Mr. Weldon Smith, correct?
That's well, Peter they know me by.
Okay, Peter. That's who I know you by. And this is your wife?
This is Peto, Weldon Peto Smith, Carolyn. And I'm, quite young. No, I don't mind telling you, I'm 70 years old. And just enjoy being Mrs. Weldon Smith, living in Lewisburg Swamp, as he calls it. You must come and see our swamp sometime.
I sure will. Thank you.
Now, you
Fritz. Tell us about you, Fritz.
I'm Frederick Minus. I'm 88 years old. I was born in Mandeville, raised in Mandeville.
What year were you born, Mr. Smith?
1904.
1904.
I will be 89 this December. I'm still alive.
You'll make it.
And he quoted Cleo Glotner.
Yeah.
They should holler at him, come get a cup of coffee while he was working at Hug's Grocery.
I'm Marguerite Henrik Sprosh. This is my old home site. I was born, do I have to tell it? April the 15th, 1918. I've lived here all my life with my husband, Noel Frosh, who operates a barber shop up in Mandeville.
Put that
That's
plug
it.
in there, good.
Thank you.
I had a shop, born in Mandeville,
on Monroe Street in a little shotgun house. And the name of that little building is The Bug. It's still there. And let's move on over here.
How old are you?
I'm 83 years old. 83 in August. And I'd like to tell something about the Smiths. Now, this is a Smith here. There's 3 Smiths.
Well, wait a minute, Dave. We go back to that.
All right, go ahead around and we'll come back here.
We don't want to have a fight this early.
I'm Brandon Smith, Tito's brother, born and reared in Lewisburg, Mandeville all my life. And I just got a service star for being married to Charlie Rose for 52 years.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elliot Palmanant, born in New Orleans, raised over here in Mandeville, a good part of my life, and now living in picturesque Chicago.
Thank you.
Jules E. Walter Sr. I'm 81 years old. Well, I mean, it's going to soon be 81. I've been living in Mandeville since 1919. And at present, I'm on Monroe Street, the same place wherever, my boy here come up at. And I have been around almost half of the world. I said, well, in the Navy, and what have you. And when things got tough here in Mandeville, I just had to get away from here. And I joined the CC camp because it was tough back in 1933. And I have, I'm in a son and a daughter, and I got a bunch of grandkids, and I got some great-grandkids. That's about it.
I'm Noel Frost, 77 years old. I was born here in Mandeville and came up as a commercial fisherman. Now I'm a barber. That's it.
I'm Dollar Rose Smith. I was 23 years old and didn't want to change my name, so I decided to marry another Smith. Born here in Mandeville on Girard Street and lived here all of my life. Married to Vernon Smith, better known as Honey.
Thank you.
I'm 75 years old.
I'm just here to listen.
Okay.
My name is Harold Emmons. I was born and raised in Abita Springs. We moved to Mandeville in 1940. I married Ursula Bourget, and we lived up until this past August at the old Bourget homestead on the Abita Highway.
My name is Ernest Brietta. I'm 58 years old. I was really not a lifetime resident of Mandeville. I was born in New Orleans and spent a whole week over there before I came back to Mandeville. I've lived in Mandeville all of my life. My father was Clay Brietta, my mother Elizabeth Malloy Brietta. I married to Marietta Hansfield, and we had 3 children, Malise Brietta, Clay Carl Brietta, and Ernie Brietta. And I'm going to take note of all the lies that these people say today. And I would talk to Morris Bard about bringing suit against them.
Let's see, Mr. Griffin.
I'm Ernest Griffin. I'm age 75. I'm just a young fellow around here, with these old timers. And I was born and raised in Mandeville, lived in New Orleans for 30 years, and retired and moved back to Mandeville, and I'm back here for 25 years now. And well, that's about all. I have one son, Ernest, and it seems like they got a lot of Ernests around here. They was all named after this man over here, grandfather. And that's about it.
My daddy built the smokehouse. That was a hurricane house. He put the posts. He built what we ended up a potato house, but he really built it in case when hurricanes come. They had the post was 4 feet in the ground, 6 posts. It was about 8 feet wide, about 10 feet long. There were 6 fat fine posts holding that thing in the ground. That post was 4 feet in the ground. circus come to Mandeville. My daddy kept his feed for a horse. We had an old horse, he'd go to Lewisburg, the mill quarters, the mill was running there. And he had an old horse he had bought for $25 from Ernest Prieta. It was crippled, it would get down and couldn't get up, you had to help it up. It had a bad leg in the front, should get rheumatism in it. My dad would take that old horse and drive to Lewisburg and sell fruit and vegetables. And the circus come to town. We had a picket fence in the back. The mare was in foal. She'd been foal about 6 months. And when that circus come to town, they had the elephant in there. This elephant's name was Roger. And I went over there to look at that elephant, and he was rocking back and forth. Man told me if I went and get a bucket of water, he'd give me a pass to get in the circus for nothing that night. So I went and got 2 or 3 buckets of water, but I couldn't fill that elephant up. Anyhow, that night, they had a squall come up, the elephant broke loose, went down by Monet's house where Elliot and them was kids, stepped on, it wasn't a page fence, but it was a heavy fence all the way around the school. The old block, or half a block. And the elephant stepped on that fence and pushed it down. Come on through the yard, my dad's vegetable garden, pulled up the pecan trees and threw them out of the way. Well, he stepped, there was a spot that big, old nigga Uncle Lewis had to take 2 wheelbarrows of dirt to fill up each footprint. He went over there by that smokehouse. My daddy could hear feed pouring in the barrel, and he thought one of the circus men was stealing the feed. So he took this old single-barrel shotgun, put a load of shots in it, slipped up to the door, eased the door open, and when a lightning flash, an elephant was done pushed that smokehouse over and was eating feed out of the barrel. He ate a sack of cracked corn and a barrel of oats by the time my daddy found it there. When that lightning flashed, he looked up just 10 feet up from me, seen that elephant's ear flopping like that. He eased back in and locked the door. And Robert said, "What's the matter?" He said, "I'm scared to tell you." He went to the front door and called that fella that tended to the elephants. He heard him that day calling to come tend to the elephants. And he called that man started calling that elephant from out in the street. He didn't come in and call him, he called out, kept outside calling. And finally, until that elephant went to grunting and groaning, then he come in there to him. He didn't want to come off on him all at once, he said. And he come in there and started beating that elephant on the nose and backed him out all the way over to the circus. Tied him up again. I want to tell you about the Smiths now. I'm working on helping this girl with that book. You might know Peter named Eveline.
Yep.
David.
Yep.
And Eveline.
Well,
Eveline is right. Uncle Louis.
Smith, Robert Weston Smith married Spell's daughter, Evelina, his oldest daughter. And they had 3 children, and 3 boys. One was named Robert, that was the Lewisburg Smiths, come from Robert.
Yeah.
They had another one named Tom, that was the William Smith family, come from Tom. And Philip Smith Bunch came from a fellow named Goodby Smith. Goodby Smith was the father of Philip Smith Sr. Philip Smith Sr. was the father of Bay, Doc, Darling, and the rest of the bunch down that far. But Tom Smith was the father of William Smith. bunch. That's the three of them. He died when he was about 30 years old, Weston Smith, Robert Weston Smith. She married again. Now that goes into a different name, the children coming from them. But that's where the Smiths come from.
I'm sure glad you told me.
I didn't know it.
I knew you had a Smith laying around somewhere.
Somewhere.
Well, now they're trying to find where Robert Weston Smith come from, and they're having trouble with that.
Who's looking for him?
Doris Holden.
Still looking for him?
Yeah.
Now, what's the name is back in genealogy of the Smiths in Baton Rouge?
Oh, Marguerite David's daughter. Lamazan?
Yeah, what about her?
She's making a genealogy of the Smith, but she don't have anything like that.
No, she didn't go back as far as you did, for sure. How many Smiths
I
were
was
there?
1764 or 74, around 1774.
You got that written on paper?
Yeah. That's all the birth certificates, census reports. That's where it all comes from. Plenty of it. You had to get that at the St. Louis Cathedral in town. And at that time, we was under Spanish rule, and all children, regardless of what religion you were, all children were christened Catholic and given a Spanish-type name. You see, Eveline, you'd call it E, but they ended it up with an O to make it sound Spanish. All children was christened Catholic at that time when we were under Spanish rule.
No wonder we don't have room in our church here.
Mr. Vernon, you got something?
Oh, mine goes way back to when we were kids. I was hoping Piggy would be here, but he's not. But we used to have a community bathhouse down there. And we all used to go swimming. And whoever owned the bathing suit had it on, he went in first. And then he would take it off and throw it back. And the one who went in last came out first. We never did go in buck naked. We'd always have something on.
Y'all weren't modern in those days.
Where was that bathhouse?
On the other end of Lewisburg, in front of the old Muller place. I think Coynes lived there at that time, and the Levertons were living at the back end of their property in the house back there on Copal Street.
Freeze old property.
No. Oh, that was after that.
No, it was.
Or before that. No, it was after that, I'm sorry. That was when he moved over on at the end of Hoynes' place. And we never did wear that bathing suit out.
Mr. Matt?
Jules, Carolina. Well, me and Edgar Shaw used to be off the bars when I was a kid when I come in to Mandeville, and I never will forget the damn thing as long as I live. And also your daddy, Elliot, wasn't it?
Elliot was also born.
Elliot and also Henry, huh?
Oh.
Yeah.
And that was in,
Gasper Kachariot, Junior Kachariot, David Archer.
That's the one I was thinking about too, the one that shot the horse that time.
That was David Archer and Harry.
Boy, he was a character.
Harry never was an altar boy. Harry. That was on his
It's the funny thing about me. I can go any place in this world and I'll run into some character, and if he's there, I'm going to meet him. And I've been that way all my life. But that old David boy, he was something. I mean, as a boy, I mean, he scrapped. Man, he'd rather fight than eat.
They shot old man,
old man Schaefer.
Old man Schaefer's horse.
Tell the whole story of it, Edgar.
I don't think I'd go that far. I mean, my brother was in it, and I had just got my tail away from all that.
Tell them why they shot the dog. Why they shot the horse? That old white horse. He used to take and leave that horse out there in the lot where we used to play ball. Well, the horse would mess all over the damn ground, and we'd slide in it. So Harry come along there one day, him and John, and said, we're gonna get rid of that damn horse. And said, so Harry took the gun and he shot him. Oh! He said, Harry, shoot him again. He only jumped. So Harry shoots him again.
Yeah, but old man Hunter's brother's the guy that used to give him the hard gold. I mean, old man Hunter's, when I was a boy, hell, he used to help him around and I would ride the woods with him and everything else. Me and Clay.
But this old horse, old man Schaefer's horse, when he died, the horse died, old man Schaefer had old man Tony Predator to pay for that horse. And he took it, and Robbie had to pay so much too, because he was there with him. So and don't think old man Tony Predator didn't lay it on both of them. He used that belt.
Mr. Judge, while you're talking about that with the being altar boys, that was something I was asking Daddy. The old Catholic church that faced Jefferson Street and the old school that faced Lafitte Street, was that the first, say, original buildings of the Catholic school?
Well, there used to be when I come here, maybe you remember it, there was a little old church set in by old man Ed Monbolo. Do you remember that?
Right across
the first Catholic church in Mandeville was built by Maroney, and that was a half a block towards the swamp from Willie Naylor's house.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right in that corner.
That was only Father Odelo.
No,
what?
No, that Father Aye was the priest. That he built a 3-story college in Mandeville around it was the early 1800s. He built a Catholic college in Mandeville, 3-story building. That was what we call old colored system building today. They tell me recently they took the top story off and improved it some. But Willie Naylor complains, he says, Father, I never had any business selling that church that was down there because that was supposed to stay there. Because Maroney had dedicated it for the town, you see. But once it becomes into the diocese property, they can do anything they want.
Well, how did they ever get rid of the old town St. Anne that was in Lewisburg? Because I used to go there with Father Thomas.
The St. Anne was donated by Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
That was dedicated by Joseph Smith for a church, and it was the St. Anne.
I was altar boy down there. John know all about that.
Well, later on it became St. Anne.
Somebody that bought out Soniacs. I can't think of his name.
Charles Payton.
No. Bree's father, Canisius, palmed some money, and he changed the name to St. Anne.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was his mother, his wife.
Oh, that must have been
before it was a church,
it was a school.
It was a school. They
had school too there.
Yeah.
They had school, they had church on Sunday. On Sunday they had church.
Tommy, was this a young man and Mama's, he wanted to open a dance hall. And they only had brothers and sisters, that's all it was. Lewisburg. All Smiths and Darby's was his sister to our father.
Excuse me, Mr. Speedo. Can I get you to change spaces with Herman over there so I can get all y'all in one? We're having problems.
You get what I'm talking about. Let me get my leg around. That's a bad place to meet. I can't get out over there too. That's all right.
Would you like a chair?
He's got Manette's chair.
Okay. Then he can go back on. We don't want you to move. Well, I'm going to move over there.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll get on the same man.
That almost been kept. The musical
chairs.
I went back and picked my
Yeah.
We wouldn't dance till they come back.
I'm going further back in here if you can remember. The old church used to be about a block over in an old shotgun house. And when the school left, we had from the first to the 6th or 8th grade in that school. If anyone remembers Eleanor Coffey, she was my first grade teacher yet.
Mine too.
And she taught all 6th and 8th grades, whatever we had. And
all in one room.
All in one room. It was all a one-room deal. And Miss Eskenos used to drive the school bus with a tally-ho with 2 old horses and take the upper grades to Mandeville. And it's sitting there next to the Sharp's old place. It's still there. They tore it down and moved it around some. And let's see if I can follow that through. And then they moved the whole school to Mandeville. And then the church moved. That's when my brother started to make a dance hall at it. And they had a bunch of youngsters used to go there, and they had about 2 dances. And they went down there one Monday morning to clean it up, and someone had poured tar on the floor.
So they wouldn't dance anymore.
So they wouldn't dance anymore. The old tar's still there. Well, I went in there when they and saw where they had cleaned it, and the tar spot is still there. My mother was a Jew, as you all know. We was kin to the Levi's. And she was, well, yeah, that was my mama's sister, brother. And she says, well, damn, if they won't make a dance hall out of it, they don't want us to dance, we'll make a church out of it. So she got the 4 or 5 sisters and brother-in-laws together and said, let's start a church. So the only place we could get a preacher was from the, a priest was from the Abbey. And they had to agree to feed them breakfast and to keep the clothes and napkins and what not, the altar clean.
Altar clothes.
Yeah, altar clothes. And when each one was going to take turns. And that day we were running the dairy. When we had chickens and eggs and cream cheese, and the priest liked Mama's place so much he came there all the time. So the rest of them got out of feeding Mama Penny. Father Thomas.
Yep,
He was one of the first ones.
Yeah, is that right?
And he ran off with the housekeeper.
Still have it.
He run off with Parmesan.
Parmesan.
If you remember, all that used to make cakes and stuff and bring to the priest.
That's what
And
you
one
thought.
morning I was altar boy, and he stood up on the altar, and he says, there's a lady in the audience that's aggravating at me, and if she don't quit, I'm going to expose her name to the church, to the congregation. And the next thing I knew, so some of us done went down there to serve at Mass, and Father Thomas was gone. So I had to come from the Abbey.
He exposed her.
I was in that, well, they had a big persimmon tree there. And I was getting me a whole big bucket full of, I mean, they were good persimmons.
And he was eating cake.
He come out that back door with that shotgun and shot over my head. I fell out of that tree. It's done one. Heck, I didn't kill myself. A little Harry Predator, I was up there with me or somebody. We left. He could do some heck of a things.
Like I told you, my mother was a Jew and she could say anything. She ran Lewisburg. Mandeville too, if they let her get down.
His mother married Robert Smith first.
And then Sidney.
She had Cooley, she had Tommy and Henry.
You thought that the bottom had gone up.
Well, I'm about to get to
She had 6 sons.
then Robert died, then she married his brother Sidney.
Robert was the oldest one and Bobby was the youngest one in the family.
And then that's where they come along with
Two
Tito
sets of Smith.
and Honey and Sidney. We believe in Sidney.
Dawson,
Sidney and Ellen, Tito,
Ellen.
and
Those nicknames.
Do y'all ever see those shows?
yeah. Ernest comes over every Christmas and sees us.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, he's at the house.
Let me get back to the church.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what went on at the church. I'm a good chap. Anyway, the priest used to come home like I used to every Sunday morning. I'd eat breakfast with him. And this Sunday morning, I don't know why the subject come up, but the subject comes up about the kid, just like we got so many kids that don't know who the daddies are and all of that. And Mama comes out the kitchen with a popcorn.
That's Coach.
And give him
That's
his
what
coat.
Coach you may talk about.
Yeah, Woods coats. And she said if your damn priest would wear your pants the way you wear your collar, there wouldn't be so damn many on. I'll never forget that. This priest was a youngster. He was, in his 20s, I would say. And 30 or 40 years after that, this same priest was at a convention or something in Covington. And I was wondering, I said, I wonder if he'd recognize me. And I went up to shook hands with him, and he looked at me. He says, I never did change the way my collar fit. Remember that? That was not it. That's the truth.
I don't know whether that was the one that ran away with the housekeeper.
What priest was
No,
that?
that wasn't the one running away with the housekeeper. I can't even call his name.
Father Thomas is the one run away with.
Yeah, Father Thomas.
Thomas is the one running away with.
Father Aye, you get back to old Father Aye that opened the first college, Catholic college in Mandeville. That's what we're talking about, the college. Father Aye. So Father Aye had a nephew in France that wanted to come to the New World. So he writes to him and he sponsors his nephew. And the name of this college was St. Eugene. So he sends and get his nephew and brings him to the New World, to Mandeville. He had to have a trade to get here. And his trade was he was a gardener. And he stayed in Mandeville, and we knew him as Eugene Escanos. That was Father Aye's nephew. His name was Eugene, but it was Eugene in French.
You forgot to tell them what
That's a new one I never heard.
Mama joined the Catholic Church before she died.
She was buried in the Catholic Church.
Joined the Catholic Church.
I don't remember ever
And
joining.
the son had something out of it.
Well, she was a Jew, but she was a cool Jew.
She raised us all Catholic
And
anyway.
she joined the Catholic Church a year or two before she
Jimmy
died.
Conant was married to my cousin, Jean Aberdeen,
Yeah.
and well, they raised all their children
You
Catholic.
almost got the Smith family, huh?
Damn yeah.
All kind of ways.
We never did claim to be sure.
You didn't have to. That cost up back there 2 or 3 times.
Let's go around.
Yeah.
Daddy, you want?
Well, my grandparents on my father's side came from Alsace-Lorraine in 1850 and settled here in Mandeville. And I was raised up as a commercial fisherman, and everybody knows all the shrimp they used to have to out there, and Clay Prouder had to go get somebody to mark that seawall off 10 feet in sections, and that's all they allowed one person to have was one 10-foot section. So there was one man here, he had a couple of trades, so he got caught one day too late, and he got out there and he couldn't find a place to shrimp. So he kept walking up and down the wall. He says, all I want is enough shrimp to stuff a few sweet peppers. So one stranger said, well, here, Cap, take my place. Fella run to his truck and got his number 3 wash tub out. Come there, and just by that time the shrimp hit the seawall. That old tub was running over with shrimp. That fella said, I wonder how many sweet peppers do you have?
That was Leroy Smith.
So, after they were building this Bonacare spillway, I said, well, that's going to be there in the Lake Pontchartrain. So I decided I better find me something else to do. So I decided to go take up barbering. Well, let me back up a little bit here. My daddy was going to be a barber, and he had him a shop right behind on his the store there where the old post office was. And just across the street from him was Ollie Bridget, had a barber shop there. So I done just before my daddy got ready to open the shop, Ollie Bridget bought him out. So he never did go do any barbering then. So the barbers we had after that was Steve Josie, had his shop on Girard and Jefferson Street. And then Poisson had one at the end of Claiborne and Carroll Street. And then there was another Poisson had one by Levy's store.
That was Henry.
So
That was Arthur.
Arthur, yeah.
Right, Arthur.
Arthur, the other one was Boy Poisson.
Yeah, and there was one up on Lewisburg Road.
Yeah,
On
well,
Monroe
That
Way.
was Arthur used to cut it up there.
Well, Arthur closed up. Let Joe.
You see, then they passed a law where you had to have a license to operate a barber shop, and you had to have a health certificate every year to get your license. So that's when Arthur, he closed up by Levy's and went up by where Pre-Stress is and opened a shop.
In them house there.
Yeah, cut hair there.
2 bits ahead.
Yeah. So then after that, a fellow by the name of Claude Foray, he came open a shop where I'm at now on the corner of Jefferson and Girard. So then Claude Poisson, he went taking up barbering. He barbered with his daddy for a while. Well then, I don't know, something happened there. And after Claude Foray moved out, Claude Poisson moved in there and had his shop there. So then Bob Davis came along and he opened a shop in the St. Tammany Hotel.
Yeah.
And well, from there he moved to by Morgan's Grocery.
Yeah.
So then I come along and I open a shop on Monroe Street, right where Jules Walter lives now.
Yeah.
So I stayed there about 6 months and like to starve to death, so I went out to barber business. So then, after Claude moved out of that shop, well then I went and rented that one and finally bought the property. And then there was a fella came there, I can't remember his name, but he opened a shop between where Dutz's had his shop there, and then barroom had a bit, but I can't remember his name.
I can't either.
Well,
I mean, I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name.
Well, then Harry Lemons come, and he opened a barber shop there on the Feet Street. And then Al Barbier, he opened a shop on Montgomery and Girard Street. And it looked like they all barbered until they died. And it looked like I'm going to do the same. The only one that had any sense was Harry Lemons. He got rich and retired.
I like to starve to death, that's why I did. You pulled a good joke on Al Barbier. With those
That's
white.
what that little shop was.
Yeah.
Al Barbier was the guy who had that little shop.
Yeah, on where
Oh,
the
yeah,
shop is there now, where
Oh, there's one.
the bar is.
Next to Dutch's old garage. That's who ran that shop.
No, there was another one there.
There's another one there too?
Yeah, there was another one there. Because he come there and he wanted to buy my place. Not the other one didn't want to sell it. So then he come back later and I said, well look, I said, I'd like to go back commercial fishing. How about you and I working together and I'll just come in and work in the evening. And so he said, well, I'll let you know. And he come back and he said, why you want me to work for you? And he said, you must have 2 chairs. I said, no, I didn't ask you to work for me. I asked you to work with me. He said, well, I'll take one of the chairs off your hands. I said, it's been sitting there for a number of years since old man Steve Josie had it. I said, it hadn't cost me a penny. So he said, well, I'll open a shop and put you out of business. So that's when he went and opened that shop down there, and he stayed there about 6 months, and he left.
Well, then Upper Poisson quit Malvern down by Levis because they wanted to make him charge 35 cents a haircut.
That's right.
He was charging 2 bits a haircut. 2 bits, 15 cents for shave, 2 bits for a haircut.
That's right.
So they come there and told Boy Poisson that he'd have to go up to 35 cents. He said, well, he said, all the people ain't got no money. 2 bits is enough. He said, but if you want me to go to 35, I'll go to 35. So then they went down and told Arthur. And Arthur said, we ain't got enough money. People ain't got enough money. I can charge what I want. So they told him, well, I have to close you up. You won't get no license. So that's when he moved up there and put his barber. He put his barber chair in the back of that little shed up there in the back of his house.
And any change you had in your pocket, I mean, you give it to him. If it was 20 cents, he took it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Old man Steve Josie used to take and cut your hair, give you a shave,
and give you a
glass
shake
of wine. Give you a shake in the back room.
When we moved in that house,
he shaked you to death.
when we moved in that house, in the center part of the house, which we call the living room, there was a hole in the floor.
Trap door in the floor.
Huh?
Trap door.
A trap door.
They used to keep it.
And that's where that's where I understand he kept his blues.
Getting back to the Levi's, when my dad had the baker shop across the street, we used to sit on them steps in the front when they had a funeral. And old man Zizzy Levi used to take and drive the hoist. Old man Beer Horse used to come sitting up there on the top with them horses. And he'd get down and go in the back. They'd go into church with the coffin. Man, Zizzy used to wear that little black derby. We'd sit over in the front and watch him what he's going to do. And he'd get down on the side of that chair. As soon as they get in the church, he'd take that black derby off and put it in the front like that. He'd get that bottle of wine behind the derby. And he'd be looking at the church. He'd put it down. He'd get 2 shots before they drink it.
Old man Levy used to always come talk to me. I had them steps, went all the way down to the sidewalk. Every day, old man ZZ would come there and talk to me. He'd never get a haircut. So I never could wonder. I wondered why in the world would that fella come in there to talk to me. And I found out that's where he was hiding his whiskey under my steps.
Edgar, what was the the Levi that had the newspaper? You remember ZZ?
Oh, that was Rosenthal.
Yes, right.
That was Rosenthal had that.
Rosenthal and Hood.
What was it? Selleck? He was a character.
That was Leo and them's daddy.
Yeah.
Gary and them's daddy.
Selleck Rosenthal. You're right. I thought it was leaving.
No, it was Rosenthal.
Old man Zizzy, my mother would tell me, go down there and get some pork chops or something. I'd go down there and he'd get that hand saw and he'd cut. Put his hand right underneath that paper and lay it up on there. Look at that, son. Right on the money. He had his thumb right underneath it.
In those, I don't think 90% of those old folks, they couldn't read or write. I remember back when, a long time, when for some reason, Papa ran a milk route and stopped at Levi's. Old Leopold was there at the time. He was kin to Mama. And Papa bought a grindstone there at a hardware store. He sold everything in that old store. Bought a grindstone from him and didn't pay him. At the end of the month, Leopold sent him a bill, and Papa, just like we do now, throwed it down to the wife, and she looked at it and had a charge for a cheese, a round cheese. She drew the picture of the cheese.
Got to put the hole in it.
Had to put the hole in it, the grindstone, and Mama called him up and chewed him out and said, "We never bought a cheese, all milk and cheese clever we got, we wouldn't buy it." Come to find out it was the grindstone she was
Uncle Alphonse Depre, an old man, he couldn't read or write either. Because see, here he and my great-grandmother were sisters, and sisters to Harriet Dupre, and my great-grandmother, and Alphonse, and Gus Dupre. There was two sisters and two brothers. They were raised in Lewisburg. And mother and father died when the two girls was older than the two boys. And Harriet took her little brother Gus and raised him when she got married to Smith. And the other one took Fonce, Johnny and them's daddy, and raised him.
Who was the Harriet Smith that married Robert Smith? I mean, Harriet Depre that married Robert Smith.
She married Robert.
Yeah.
Harriet.
I
That's
read
right.
that
She was
grandmother.
Depre.
Yeah.
She was
that grandmother.
That's yeah, that's right.
Jules and Robbie and I used to be altar boys there at the church. And Robbie and I used to get, what Thomas had this, what was this old colored woman's name that was there? Boy,
She was a Lloyd.
Her name, you remember?
No. I mean, the last name
Well, anyway,
was Lloyd,
she
but I
had
can't
George
think of the first name.
was taking care of things for him and all. So they used to come, wine used to come in little barrels about that big. Well, our job was to siphon it off and put it in the bottles.
What the hell was that girl's name?
Can't call her name. Well, anyway, Robbie and I get there and we siphon, put it in the bottles, you know, every now and then. Well, you lose it, you know what I mean? Angelina.
Angelina, that's it.
That's the one I was
That was her name.
She said,
She
you
was
boys
a
are
housekeeper.
going to get sick.
She was
We
a
got
housekeeper.
dizzy a few times, I'll tell you.
Angelina Lloyd.
She was the housekeeper.
Let me ask y'all a question a minute. Would y'all want to take a break a minute and get a Coke or some coffee and some chips or something?
I may have a little coffee.
Why don't we just take a break and just stretch a little bit too?
The
You
school.
didn't even open it. Oh, yeah?
Here's the school right here.
We got some political stuff there.
I'm looking at it from way over here.
I had to fix this
Here's the
up.
school.
Okay, to show you how that.
Yeah, that's the old
Yeah.
school, yeah.
This is the Northern House. That's a bell tower right over here.
Yeah, that's the one was across the street.
This was the color school. You got the one over there across the street.
You get my no, that ain't the color school. That ain't the
Oh,
color
yeah,
school.
yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'll just take one for Vernon.
That's when we was still
When
going.
you pass this here, you're going towards the lake. Griffin's over across the street from here, almost, but a little bit further to the lake. Griffin's Bakery. A Bodo's Grocery.
It must be over short. I ain't got my bread.
Did your mother tell you I called her the other day?
Bodo had grocery right on the corner where
And Mrs. Johnson, I think.
I didn't know he had grocery there.
Grandma was there and had a lot of cats.
Edmond was married to your sister, or your daddy's sister, O'Neill. Yeah, Olivia.
That was Olivia.
She was married. She had one son named Douglas. Her husband died, and then she married Woodall again. And then Douglas died with the flu in 1918. She died we were so happy.
She said, yes, I remember that.
Boy, it was just a little they had Douglas laid out in front, and his mama didn't know it. He was dead. He was laid out. Boy, you come through this.
But when it does, we'll just go in.
Do you know any of these on here?
Okay, y'all want to get Mr. Howard? You want to tell us what
This
you
is
know about it?
names I
Yeah, you
have.
got the Griffin, yeah.
Okay.
That's big right there.
Well, they had a little old boy here, lived here many years ago.
I wouldn't know anything like that.
I'll
be reading it.
Naomi.
And Chitty West had a garage across the street from the bakery shop. He used to always be around there. And he had this batteries where he charged these batteries. And that's the dampness on this thing. They used to come on in, they'd put a nickel up there, and when he's in it real bad, he'd always say he'd run around. Try to get that
I've
nickel
seen
off.
this picture before.
Well, he'd knock one off once in a while, they'd shock him and get back at it. One day he come down, should have got a hold of some oil and mustard. And they had Henry trying to get it off there, and he kept on. All of a sudden, they poured that oil and mustard on him when he was leaning over. And he was, all of a sudden, it started to burn him, and he didn't know what happened. He grabbed at his rear and took off for the beach. When he got to Levi's, they had a little well in the front that they used to have there for horses to drink out of. It was a little old log can, about 50 gallons. But when he got to Levi's corner there, he sat down in that water, man, to cool it off. So he got back up, took off again. He was going to Williams drugstore to see if he could get some help. He was on fire. Well, the lake looked too good to him. He couldn't turn in there, so he went over in the lake and walked down the lake. And there's a lady here, her father used to have an aeroplane. When airplanes was first starting out, and they had a fellow by the name of Luke, used to be by the name of Luke, I gotta say colored now.
Afro-American.
Well, still behind. And he used to bring the gasoline out there to the plane. So he puts it there. The old Luke took it to him, bring some oil out there. So he brought out oil out there a few times. He said, Mr. Kuby, he said, I'd sure like to take a ride that day. Kuby one day told him, all right, I'm going to take you up today. And he says, I just want to fly straight. I don't want to. Well, there's another story to it. Instead of flying straight, he'd done everything they could do with that plane. And he had it wired up with bale wire and everything. Well, the nigger turned white.
He flew over Clutch's garage upside down. The nigger's hat come off.
Kuby brought him back. And when he brought him back, he lost his mind. He had to go to Charity Hospital.
He never did get right.
Never did get right after that. Well, how about you, Mr. Lemon? You tell us something for
Well,
something.
I don't know.
Laugh a little.
All I know is what I was told. I was listening to Skinny Bojay. All this stuff they talk about, I know it's true because she didn't lie. That's about all I know. I know what he's talking about, the shots, and what he's talking about the colored dude with the airplane flying. Is that Hansberger had the airplane?
Yeah.
Calvin Hansberger had the plane. I remember all of that. But listen to some of these other people talk. I remember you talking about the preacher ran off. I mean, I didn't know that because I didn't live here, but I remember her telling me that.
I'll tell you what Aunt Jenny did tell you, them shorts wasn't no good. That was a bunch of no counts.
She didn't say that. She didn't
She
mean it.
said that was a bunch of no counts.
She might say it, but she didn't really mean it.
Uncle Jack, she said Uncle Jack had to hire people to come walk and brand the calves for him. The boys was no count. There wasn't no count.
Well, maybe that was Tootsy's dad she's talking about.
Well, it was my grandfather and Zachariah Shaw, Coach's daddy, and Elliot Shaw. They all, she said, when it come time to brand the calves, they always had to go to Mandeville. They'd print and get dressed, get the horse saddle and go to Mandeville instead of helping the old man. I'll tell you who else, Maurice Shaw told me, his daddy used to go help old man Zachariah Shaw mark and brand these calves. He couldn't get them. And when they sold plenty of that cattle, they sold them to Ernest Frietta, this boy's grandfather. And he told them, instead of them bunching them up, they told Ernest to have them bunched up and give us a tally on them. We know what the tally is. And when they tallied them up, he says, y'all was wrong, boys. Y'all was run short. He said, well, that's all right. They said, that's all right, pay us what it was worth. You was asking me about that little piece of land, Elliot Shaw, you know, from Jackson Avenue that way. Elliot said on that, from the railroad track, they had a big a thing to put feed and stuff in there. I don't know. Silo. That big silo. I don't know if Elias had that silo on there or if your grandfather put the silo on.
Old man Frietta put that silo on. He owned from the railroad all the way back.
Yeah, well, he bought that from my great uncle Elliot.
Great uncle, and he gave him 2 barrels of flour for that. I was there at that transaction. 2 barrels of flour.
2 barrels of flour.
Yes, sir.
Well, I tell you what, he had told my uncle, great uncle, he could give him a job in New Orleans, and he did. He managed some way to get him a job in New Orleans, so that's why he sold the land to Ernest, because he moved away. He sold the cattle and the land to Ernest, and he moved to New Orleans.
But he kept it in the family.
But he wasn't over there long, and the job run out. Well, then he went to Ponchatoula, and that's his family stayed up in that area.
But he kept those cows in the Shaw family.
Oh yeah, that's famous.
My great-great-grandmother was Pauline Shaw.
Well, that's right on, Shaw, right on.
That was his mom. So he kept those cattle in the family.
But I heard they were lazy. They didn't tend to the cattle like they should. And Aunt Jenny said that they work in the field, the girls and the boys work in the field in the morning. They like till noon, and then they'd come in and eat, and then take a nap. And then after they got up, go back in the field. The girls and the old man would go back in the field, but the boys would dress up and go to Mandeville. That's what she was talking about. It wasn't no good. There was no accounts.
Ernest Frietta used to get 2 carloads of cottonseed hull and a carload of cottonseed meal. And all the poor cows he brought right in Mandeville there, where the old grocery store was, and fed those cows under there during the winter. Because I know he never cleaned the cars out. He'd come tell my daddy, he said, go ahead and clean them out. We always got enough cottonseed hull, cottonseed meal to feed Lyle's cows the whole winter.
You know why he did that, Mr. Bill?
Why?
Because if that cow died, he pushed that bugger up, got the Fritz there. He sold that. If he died out in the woods, he could.
Talking about them cows, one evening, your grandfather, he said, Bub, what you doing tomorrow morning? I don't know, that no.
Now that Elliot looks to be about 14 there. We're trying to guess how old he's.
Cut meat. What was his name?
Ancho, Fritz?
No, the one.
Sonny Rogers?
The one that killed himself.
Let me go ahead and show her.
Black Ridge.
Okay.
He said, take Mike and that little nigga that used to ride. Colored guy used to ride.
This is the cafeteria.
Used to ride for him.
I went to school.
Would you bring him out there on the East Louisiana Road? He says, I got a bull out there, an old Bremer bull, he says, and we done tipped him one time. That's when they was doing that tipping.
Yeah.
He said, man, he said, man, we can't get him in. So I said, yeah, I'll bring him out there. 5 o'clock in the morning. One time I asked him. I said, what truck you want to take? He said, take that new one I just bought. New truck. They loaded the horses on, drove them out there. They took the horses out. They went and got that bull back in there, and they drug him all the way through. They drug him into the truck. I backed him down the ditch so they could drag him up in and tied his head down. They would come on back to Dillon's now. That's where they had their different back. Got him out. Went back to the truck. About 3 or 4 days after that or something, I went by the store there. Mac Rich said, "You better get out of here, man." He said, "Preston, man, is he mad at you? Boy, he's mad. You better get out of here quick." I said, "Well, hell, I ain't done him nothing. I don't know what I did him. I don't know what the hell went on." First thing you know, he was over there getting coffee by his mother. Here he comes. Do. God, I don't want to say the words he said, but boy, he called me everything under the sun. What the hell do you? He says, "Do me? Damn it, the hell, you know, on a Tuesday I always go to town to get stuff." He said, "You took that new truck?" And he says, "Man," he says, "when I get over to the French market," he says, "it cost me $3, he said, to get a guy to clean the truck out." And boy, he was going on. I said, "Well, who is the boss around here anyway?" He said, "Your daddy told me to take this truck." "I don't care who the boss is." The old man sitting over there by his desk, you know, listening to all this, laughing up his sleeve. He gets up, he says, "I told him to take that new truck. I paid for it. That was the end. I ain't worried no more." That was it.
Mr. Fritz, you got something?
Come on, Fritz, give us one.
Come on.
I just listened to what they said. That's all the same things I know.
You agreeing with them or calling them a bunch of liars?
That's right.
But, on one of these papers I passed out is a copy of one of the steam of Madisonville, I believe, huh? Yeah. If y'all would talk about some of them old steamboats. Everybody remembers any of that? Talk about the different ones they had.
You ought to remember the Camellia.
No,
You don't remember the Camellia?
I thought I rode on a Camellia, but evidently I didn't, because I rode on one that had a wheel on each side. But I know the Camellia had a wheel on each side, but evidently it was some other boat. There was some other boat that had a wheel on each side.
Well, what were the different ones that came from Mandeville?
Camellia was the first.
Camellia, Pleasure.
Yeah, a little boat called a reverie.
The Joseph Weaver is the one that pulled the walk down with the people on it. The captain was drunk, and he pulled it down, and there was an old nigger. He saved a lot of people, not a good to keep them drowned. That was the Joseph Weaver.
Reverie and the chlorine, they just carried past.
Small,
The Southland was square at that point.
Yeah, that's the one right up in
The Southland. And they had,
Susquehanna.
yeah, Susquehanna. That came from up on the Susquehanna River. They brought it down here.
The ozone.
Yeah, you got to get him out.
The last one that run.
They took off.
I had two Camellias. Camellia number 1 and Camellia number 2. They called them the new Camellia. The new Camellia is the one that has metal all around.
Well, it said, I asked the difference in that. I asked somebody, there wasn't no difference, they just put a job on it, cleaned it up. They called it the new Camellia.
Yeah, well, but they put a copper.
Well,
Copper sheet all over it, you see. keep the barnacles from eating it up.
Well, it's stayed up now.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's down in the river. You seen where it was.
It'll live there for a long time.
Now, when those boats run out there, they used to have a trolley that run out to the boat landing.
Motor car went out there. That was, that's when we had the motor car line went to Covington.
That's right close to your house.
That was, I think the one that got that, the instigator getting that deal going was, what the devil was it? They're right next door to Duval's on that side there. Bud was the one that got that motor car line started. The parish, I think, had put a tax on to get it operated. It operated for a little while, but the taxes were paid for it. Never did make any money.
Yeah, but after the wharf got knocked down, he quit running out there. Just stopped at Valley
Well,
Fans.
you take the one way Joseph Weaver and what was the name of that? That wharf was out in front of East Portman's house, right? That's where the railroad used to come out there in right up around 1898 or something, I think. That railroad ended up. It went to the lake shore.
Was that the railroad or the motor car?
Railroad.
East Louisiana Railroad.
The East Louisiana Railroad came out to the beach, and then they had a wharf out there, and that's where the boats used to land. Oh, man, it's right on the end of my tongue, the name of that wharf. Oh, they had that Portland boy here.
Oh, my God.
I had Millennium Airseed in the paper about 6 months ago.
You see the Camellia,
Run through. I have it at the house. I'll bring it to you.
the Camellia stopped at Knoxville, Mandeville, Lewisburg, and Madisonville.
They're named out go off in Lewisburg,
The Camellia Wharf, right out
still hung to it.
Go off is still there. I can't remember the name of that wharf, but the railroad came out there. It didn't run off. The only reason the railroad come there because it was just like a sideline, because they were running lines all over the woods picking up logs, you see, and they were bringing them switches right into it, but it came right on to Lewisburg. That was the East Louisiana Railroad.
It came right alongside of Portland.
Right, Portland's house. That's where the depot was. That was the termination.
Right through that swamp in the back.
Right down the side.
That old motor car passed right by your house.
Yeah, was right down the side of my house. The motor car line came through there, came through
What
Foley.
they did with those logs back
When they
there?
brought those logs
What were they doing with the logs? You said they were spreading out.
They were shipping them, or?
They went to Tylertown, Mississippi. Plenty of them went to Tylertown, Mississippi. And right there in Slidell, they had another sawmill. And in the meantime, they was opening up a sawmill in Lewisburg later on.
In 1913.
Then that sawmill come to Lewisburg.
He was a baby.
I was born the day they opened the sawmill, and 12 years later on my birthday they closed it.
12 years. You know how long they operated?
That's all.
I don't see how they could cut that much timber in 12 years. Joseph Smith opened a butcher shop, right? Going in towards the commissary.
In the commissary, finally, or next
Them
door.
Smiths had cattle. The whole family lived off the cattle butcher. They had butcher cattle, and the whole family lived off of them butcher shops. Evelyn cut meat just as good as old man Joe could.
Let me tell you something about the Smith's butcher shop. Don't print this other than I want you got that. When Uncle Joe then had the meat market across from the old firehouse down by the church.
Yeah.
When they moved from Lewisburg, they used to drive cattle from Mississippi. So they went up there, bring some cattle back, and on one of his trips he brought a family of Afro-Americans and moved them in there. And I don't think they stayed there more than 2 nights, but I remember one moonlight night, you could see them coming along the fence with the shotguns. And they got over there and they shot every window out the house. The next morning, I think they went back to Mississippi. Remember that night?
Now they call it Ku Klux
They moved
Klan.
to Lewisburg and the old home where they, Alec and all of them were born.
My daddy made that meat counter for him. That was the only piece of timber I saw that he hewed. We cut a magnolia down for him and he took his axe and
Uncle Dave and Uncle Murray, I don't think Papa got in on that deal. He didn't have a gun.
Vernon, sister, Ella.
Well, down
Tell
Lee's
a
old
story.
house is the old home, old Joe Smith homestead, right? That's the old homestead.
Where?
David's house.
No.
Well, yeah, where Pooh and them live.
That was Grandma Smith. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that,
Oh, yeah.
that was Harriet's house, Harriet and Robbie, and they raised their family there. Then right across the street, old man Joe Rose, his family right across
Oh, that's
the
where
street.
he moved his colored
Where-
family in.
where-
They shot all of them.
Right across the street there is where that little yellow house is that the redhead owned. Right in that lot. That was the old Joe Smith. Do you remember that house? Big old 1x12, big old 1x12 whitewashed building. And another one. Well, here's something else. T.L. Dobie says that Rollins always owned the Riley place where T.L. lives now. How wrong he is, well, even before Marinoni. That was one of Joe Smith's, Joe Homespell's daughters married Zachariah Strange. And that was her share of land where T.L. Dobie is now. In other words, it was when she got married to Strange, well, her daddy gave her that little piece of ground right there to build a house on. And that's where they lived for a long time. That building was whitewashed 1x12, a long building in there. And then later on, I don't know when it's tore it down. I was a little kid when they tore it down. I remember that.
I keep asking the question, you know, if y'all got something y'all want to talk about, tell me. But up here in the state park, where the old buildings used to be, where the governor was, no, well, I was going to ask about that too, but what governor was that? Lesh? That built all that up in there where the golf course was going and all of that stuff?
Anyway.
What do you mean, going towards Cullington?
Right by the bayou. Bayou Cane, where
Country Club.
State Park.
Oh, that building when Les was in there, that crooked bunch, what was he saying that right here by the bayou? They was building a building right in there. Your back was hooked up into that thing.
And that stayed where the old
Rankin.
Lash and Gilback
the house on the other.
What was that? Rankin, right.
His was
I
on
think
Big
where that
Red.
Gilback is not is the one that this Frenchman, the cook, what's his name? Wears suspenders. I think he's got that place now.
Yeah, Wilson.
Oh, it was Rankin, right? Yeah, he just sold it. Oh, that cool ass.
Yeah, he's a cool ass.
Justin Wilson.
Justin Wilson.
Justin Wilson. Yeah, Justin Wilson. He tries to talk on ass, but he can't.
Come on, Ernest, you give us something here around.
I don't know anything old. That's the trouble, you know.
Yeah, he's too young.
That's right. I can only tell you about newer things. And if I say it in front of my wife, Now, I remember Mr. Fritz when I was about 6 years old. My grandfather took me down to the ballpark on Jackson Avenue, and I don't know what the Mandeville team was, and Mr. Fritz was all dressed up in his baseball outfit. I think Harry Prieta may have been playing with him, I'm not sure. But I was just a little kid, and I remember them playing ball down there. Tell us about that, Mr. Fritz. Tell us about the baseball team.
Oh, they had a pretty good baseball team.
But they used to, when it first started, Mr. Bullery used to run the team. And if Covington beat Mandeville, he'd hire some New Orleans players to make a better team. Then they'd beat Covington, they'd switch it about every time, hiring new players.
Remember Charlie Downs that played on that team?
Charlie Downs.
Yeah.
Charlie Downs played on that team.
Yeah, he got it
Charlie Downs, $4 to come out of New Orleans to come play to beat Reno Hill.
You know where he is now? It's nursing home.
Oh, go ahead.
He's been out there over a year.
Pop up Charlie.
Yeah, I know they used to call him
Pop up Charlie. Remember that?
Does he know?
Do it every time he used to play golf.
And they brought in that left-hand pitcher, left the Hotard.
Do you remember the time you locked me in the cooler?
Yeah,
We had a latch on that cooler only on the outside, not on the inside. And I went in there to get some meat or something. We went and run there and shut the door and latched it on.
What about the dummy from Madisonville?
That was something old, done.
Yeah, that's been.
Boy, they used to put him in jail there, and boy, they had to turn him out. He hollered all night.
He was scared to death of a knife.
Yeah, he was scared of a
Boy,
knife.
he was a big bully, but he was scared of a knife.
Fellow would take him, put him on the, bring him to the highway and tell him, go on to Madisonville now. I don't believe they ever brought him up to court.
What was the name of that guy who used to catch for Slidell all the time? Man.
He and Henry Smith, they were just like two bulldogs.
Oh, man. He was always, no matter what they threw it over the plate on, it was wrong.
Walk the walls.
Walk the walls, that's right.
Boy, when Slidell and Mandeville met, they had to get every policeman that they could rake and scrape from the parish here.
Well, Madisonville was like that.
Yeah.
That Madisonville, they'd make Mandeville swim that river.
What about when they played Pearl River? They ripped you one way or another.
That must have been bad a long time with Madisonville and Mandeville, because my daddy told me that they went over there to watch a baseball game, and Mama had an umbrella in her hand. And she got in the argument with Fiona Chatelaire. And Mama got to beating that woman with that umbrella. And they had about 5 or 6 people had to separate them, but they never did get to see the ball game. Somebody come rode them across the river in a boat, and they had to stay on that side until the rest come over and took them home.
Fiona's Jack's mother.
Yeah.
Hey, Lou, tell them about all the good Johnny. Yesterday we was talking, he come by the house, and I told him, I said, you the guy used to steal all the Chinese from him. And he started talking about ball bearings, tell him about that. What they used to do, you know, they could.
Cooksie Shaw used to go there. Mr. Cooksie, you got some ball bearings? Yeah, son, look on the table over there. They got some over there. And boy, when you reach in there to get that ball bearing, he can almost knock you down. He had that thing wide there.
Grab a handful and good move.
Gladys was there working with Cooksie. So he walked outside and he put that stocking over his head. He walked back in there. Sharp, you got a cigarette? And Cooksie, man, he hated to look at him, you know, they're terrible looking. So, son, I should have some around here. Well, get him, don't mess around there. And he had Cooksie so excited he didn't know where he was at. By that time, the fella drove up putting gas in for Cooksie. Rivers walked out there and said, look, I know you're going to Covington. I want to ride with you. Well, son, I'm going towards Slidell. He said, well, I'll go to Slidell too. So, every Saturday night, Preston, Ben Morgan would get a pint of whiskey, and when they closed the store, we would kill that pint. So I told Mike, I said, Mike, Philip Smith was there. I said, Mike, I'm going home and get that stocking now. I said, don't let Philip fight me. He said, oh, I'll watch him. So, man, I went home, got that stock and walked back in there, and man, Matt Ritson, he hugging me all over. Man, where you been? I haven't saw you in so many years. Philip, you know that fella? He never put his foot in Mandeville before, I guarantee you that. I couldn't take it much longer, and I took that stocking off, and man, Philip left. That's a horrible looking sight.
What was the name of the old black man who used to work for Cootsie? He used to hang around there all the time.
Luke Foster.
Oh, Luke Foster, that's what I had.
That's the one.
That's the one Calvin took out down, played put upside down.
Oh, is that the one?
Yeah, his hat flew off, floated right on down over there to my Cootsie's garage. Brought that nigga back, he never did talk good anymore.
He was playing music after that.
All them bosses used to play
Yeah,
Yeah, old consumer.
And Fumble played that big old fiddle, that bass fiddle.
Miss Peter was talking about the sugar mill and not plantation out there. Did you remember about that?
They say that they had a brickyard out at Knott's Plantation, and from what information I find, I can't find out where they had a brickyard out there.
I never did
But
know too much about it. That was a fall place for Lewisburg.
Knott's was supposed to
I went out there when I was a kid, got a horse, and rode through that old mill, was gone already. But the whole plantation was in sugarcane at one time.
Yeah,
The whole lake.
all the way up the shops. The sugarcane roads is still showing in there.
All the roads was there at that time anyway.
My daddy was in charge of that plantation at one time.
Lenny, you
Like
know
a
who
watchman over it or something.
Do you know who has more or less the history of that? Is what's that guy that run for mayor never gets elected? The usher at church.
Al Shea?
Al Shea.
Oh, wow, he has it.
Hal has
Well, they evidently had a brickyard there somewhere, because where the Knott's Walk is full of bricks. So they either were loading bricks on schooners there and hauling them to New Orleans. And I wouldn't be, if they hauled bricks to there, they used for something. There'd be more bricks than that.
I heard they had a brickyard there, but
They got to have a brickyard there somewhere.
I know that when they walked blink, them bricks went down. You've seen them there already, all underneath the
Well, I thought them bricks was there. It's all bats. So evidently, while they were loading the bricks, rolling them out there with wheelbarrows and loading them on the schooners, the bats going to the Orleans wouldn't be no good to them. So they just threw the bats overboard. And I think that's why the bats accumulated right where that walk there. Because they used to go to New Orleans about a schooner load. Because they had a nigger, a free slave nigger, well, a free black. They had about 15 slaves of his own, and right where the primate center is now, he had a brickyard in there. And the records where I read about it, he was a very successful brickman over here.
Well, you're talking about Demeril Brickyard, huh?
No, that's a different one.
Different one?
It's a different one. It was down close to where, in other words, he took 3 loads, schooner loads of bricks to New Orleans a couple of times a week. And he owned 3 schooners. That's all they did. He had
Demeril back of
His name Booker?
Yeah.
Parker.
Booker.
Booker? Was it Booker?
I ran across some bookers that owned property out there.
Yeah.
Well, do y'all remember the first name of Demeril's brickyard? What was his first name?
That's all you had,
Demeril, don't it?
Demeril, it's all.
I can find out though. I can look in the book home. I'll find out if it's give the full name.
Well, I got an old brick here, and it's J.D. on here.
I think his name was James.
James?
He used to own all up around the railroad track.
Yeah.
Between Mandeville Highway and Peter Highway.
What's he like?
Whole Batchberry.
That's an
This-
antique.
Yeah, this was Well, y'all remember where the old house we did in Mother had on the very corner there?
Yeah.
Well, I was digging there in the yard, and that's where I dug this up. This evidently was one of the foundation bricks or something.
Well, plenty of people used to put them around flower beds on an angle, too.
Could have been Mr. Levy bring that around to hide his
Kept it cool.
Baby, we better go. Butcher's gonna come back by.
Do you remember
Butcher's
when
coming
they
back
used
by.
to ship the
Yes,
lumber
we've been
to
there before.
New Orleans and put the whiskey in the hole and schooners?
Captain Croce hauled that stuff, didn't he push the barges?
I don't know, I'm just asking.
Jimmy Reed.
I remember about it out of
Jimmy
Lewisburg.
Reed was captain.
No, I don't know.
Oh, I think I know whose boat that was.
Loaded wood all day and whiskey all night.
Down the desk and the other desk.
They were just ahead of the time. They knew that was a bad loss.
Captain Croce, he used to come by Seymour Smith's all the time. And I think he bought a Model A ton truck of Seymour. And I don't know how come they come to Seymour's all the time. But he had run the tugboat for Porter. And he used to fish, and he used to have sheephead and crocus for sale. He kept them in the fish car in Lewisburg. Y'all don't remember Captain Croce?
Yeah.
Little short man. Drunk all the time. He didn't know what was to be sober.
Lenny, that brick you had must be the one that they used to build a wall between heaven and hell. They got a hole in the wall. So St. Peter went to the devil, told him to fix the hole. He said, it's not my wall, it's your wall. So St. Peter told him, said, I'll sue you. And the devil said, well, you can get a lawyer.
I would take that. I would take that.
That's a jelly joke now.
Old man Alex Van, the old man.
Going to picking on you.
She used to come over there, the old man on this brother's store. Every morning. In the winter time. And he'd look, put his hand, warm up, you know. And his dog joined us, you know, he'd sit there. When we share a little closer. He never put a piece of wood in there. When the fire go down.
A blender would term a very heavily peated malt, very
It's almost
smoky.
medicinal. We took it to New Orleans. And I was waiting for the government by then. Going to Christmas was in that first. And
If I may tell a little story.
Tell them about the time
If I may
Tilly
tell
went
them-
to show a calf for you, and she stopped to talk to a little calf while she was short, and the calf stood up all cow-hopped, and you lost out on a deal. You don't come home walking on his bottom lip, because Tilly stopped at the wrong time with your calf.
We had to have Tilly tell that one.
My little story was going to be about the fact that you asked when he started. I'll let you know when the last cow left this property. We got a call one night, we were in bed, and it was the Causeway police. And they said, Mr. Smith, we want you to come down and get your cow because she's trying to cross the causeway without paying $1. I think it was the next day Peter hauled out 3, and that was instead of putting up a new fence. He figured the fence cost more than buying milk.
Tito didn't go far enough back with the dairy business. Our daddy had a dairy. I don't know exactly when it was opened. But I know as the kids grew up, we graduated from the shovel and the wheelbarrow to milking. And Mama or someone would teach us, break us into milking. I remember when I was broken in doing fig season. And they picked a bucket of figs and set me out and dumped them out and set me out to milk. And before I got through all the milk it curdled. They gave me an old dry cow, drying up, and before I got through the milk it curdled. That's when you milk slow. But I graduated. But I don't know how long when my daddy started, but when Tito started, I think he went out of business.
Yeah, he'd gone out of business.
He'd gone out of business. He died in 48. Went out of business right through that.
Before Pito got started, George Beerhouse had a dairy, and Julo Conway had a dairy, Albert Hendricks had a dairy,
Dylan Snyder,
Dylan Smiley,
Bill
Davis. We had about 6 cows we milk. So we had a lot of milk.
And those days, milk was selling the nickel a quart, cream cheese a nickel, and all the cream you could get if you custom, you got 6 for a quarter, cream cheese.
Well, Papa never did sell milk. He did give a lot away, but we got 15 cents a quart for it the whole my life. Because when I saw it wholesale, I wasn't getting that much.
I remember one time when Papa was delivering the house-to-house deal. One day he could take it to the store and drop it off. And Tony Ferretti used to kid him all the time. And he stopped one day and he said, "Sidney, somebody complaining about catching the crawfish in your milk pot." He was accusing him of dipping up out of the dish, filling up the bottles. He was running out of milk.
Remind me that that was later too. Charge
He didn't love to Tony any more milk.
Did you want to say something else besides?
No, but I got a question to ask Noah if it's time to ask it. Who was with you that night when you hung that skeleton up in the old firehouse?
We borrowed that skeleton from Dr. Oriole. And we used to get that skeleton every year and take it in the cemetery. So one year there, I was sick, and I went and got that skeleton and they brought it up to my window and knocked on that window with it. So after that, I told them, I said, we better not fool with that skeleton anymore. So then, everybody put candles on the grave for All Saints. So we'd go out there and look where they had the most candles. So we found a spot where they had plenty of candles and they had a cedar tree there. So Brother Joe and his wife, with those standing wreath, they put a sheet over it and then threw the rope over that. So my wife and I, we got to have a cedar tree right over by the summer house. So we got behind that big tomb there, and I had a pair of my pajamas stuffed with moss. So they were back there lighting those candles, and Joe and them kept pulling that sheet up and down, and boy, you never heard so much screaming and hollering in your life. Boy, they come out there, when they got to that cedar tree, I dropped them pajamas right in the middle of them, boy. 2 of those girls just fell out there, and one of them was screaming and hollering, and the other one wasn't saying a word. I told them all three, I said, good God, we killed them.
So what, Noah?
No, I'm not going to tell you.
No, I didn't ask you who was it with you when you hung that skeleton in the firehouse window. Across down there by the ballpark.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Well, they had a skeleton in there when I was an altar boy.
Yeah, that's the one that Dr. Van Zandt put together.
They had one in there. There was Robert Walden. And there was Robert Martin and Jules Walden on there.
When they covered all that stuff, I was
after church, we just had to go take a peek at that skeleton hanging in that lock up there. And somehow, with break sticks. Well, we got that. The one got the shortest stick was the one going to open the door. You see, it was in that locker. And we'd crawl up them stairs easy, always looking back to see if the rest was with you, you know. And I was at the front, and when I pulled that door open like that, I wheeled to run. I like to go over them boys. All of us going down them stairs at one time. That was the thing that took place about every month. We had to go take a peek at that skeleton. And boy, you talk about, I don't know what, but it was Robert Walden, and I think Jules was in on that. And Gaspar Cachari. If I'm right.
Going upstairs.
And we'd go up there and look at that skeleton. But you're talking about the skeleton down at Missouri. Miss Gavin had one too. And she had a feeder. She'd ordered about 6 chickens. She'd order a sack of chicken eggs for them about once a month. And she told me to open that door and put it in the box, and then I opened that door and there was that skeleton. And the first time I saw it, it made me think about that. I wondered if it could have been the same skeleton that was hanging up in that old firehouse down there. You know. But evidently the doctors all must have had a skeleton. But that sure did scare me when I opened that door with that sack of feed on my shoulder. Now you tell us something, boy.
Well, I don't know much about it. I spent most of my time in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But I didn't get mixed up on all that bunch there.
It was too bad, huh, Howard?
Yeah. I didn't have a lot of fun. We spent a lot of our time in New Orleans.
Horace wasn't over here when he was a real young boy.
I was born over here, but we moved.
Edgar, you talk about the skeleton. My daddy used to work for old Dr. Payne. Dr. Payne was the mayor, you know. And I went there one day. He said, "Oh, look in that box and see what's in there." I pulled that box open and man, I went backwards. The skeleton? They use it for experimenting. Somebody put it in there, use it for experimenting.
They call, when we went to school, they called God's country, huh? Hollywood skippers, stump jumping.
The Reno Hill ball game.
Yeah, we had a ball team named Reno Hill. Of course, then where Marquez is, the road used to slope way down. Now they cut it down a lot, made it level.
There used to be called Billy Goat Hill too.
I played with y'all for a while there, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had one ball, baseball, and I hit a home run and lost the ball, and we had to quit. We never had no money to go buy another one.
Yeah, baseball.
Yeah.
One thing about Tito, he could hit. He didn't strike out so much like others. I used to strike out plenty of times.
I believe Henry was the pitcher at that time, wasn't he?
Yeah. Then I worked around from one store to another. Finally, I couldn't get in. Well, I run the meat market for myself at the White Way Grocery. And got so during the war you couldn't get in decent meat. I skinned cows in the woods that died and it looked better than what they sent
Oh,
me.
God, I was going to say, you don't cover yourself.
So I quit once the shipyard.
I remember that name. Where was that White Way Grocery?
Right down the corner to the ballroom right now. Is that right?
The pub.
I know Jay likes to go there when he's here.
Yeah, I remember when
Originally that was Sharp's Grocery, but Eddie had built that little store on the corner there.
And then Luke came in there.
I believe he sold it to Quincy Sharp, and then Quincy rented it to White Way. Oh, there were several different ones there.
Yeah. No, Luke lived had it in there when I graduated, when we finished high school.
That's before we moved back to Van.
Before you moved back. Yeah. He was at a restaurant and
what was that?
Luke Smith. Remember when he and
Yeah.
When they say these
Yeah.
people talk about my daddy.
Yeah, he had the rest of B&L for a while too, Harold Livingston, and OJ had it there too for a while.
Yeah, that's
B&L.
white.
It's red and white.
And then Shane had it.
Sam Willie was cutting the meat for Shane at that time.
Fritz, you told me something about your cousin Rosenthal. The old man Rosenthal. The one that had the printing press. I never did find out who that was through
That was old man Sonny, wasn't it? Edgar?
That was Leon and them's dad.
That was the old,
Leon's dad that had that
he's the
printed
guy
press.
that they all got mad, and I mean, they threw the printing press in the bayou. I never will forget that.
Well, who threw
Well,
it in?
they claimed that one of his sons did it.
Alvarez,
One of his sons didn't want White to do the printing that night, and there was an election coming up, and the old man insisted
That's right.
that he get that out, and instead he went and got Cat Prietta's mule and way,
Yeah.
and hauled it to
Old
the
man
bayou
Lucas.
and threw it in the bayou.
Old man Lucas Pretta, never will forget him either.
But
And that one hand with a black ray on his stocking.
the story I heard, a father found out was somebody was going with somebody else's wife, and old man Rosenthal found it out and was going to print it. And he told him, if you print that story, you'll never print another story. And I can't figure out who it is. The only one I can figure out that would be that way, I won't call his name. That's the true story.
That was the true story? That sounds better than
That's more interesting.
Yeah, that's more interesting.
The only one I could, no, I won't call his name. This was only speculation that I was thinking.
Well, there's 2 or 3 tales they can print and some that they can't print. That's the way you gotta look at it. But the one I'm relating was printed in the Banner about 5 years ago. I never did know the true tale of it. I knew his printing press disappeared. But then I saw that in the Banner paper that the printing press was, his son, he insisted his son print them things coming out for an election. And his son, instead of, I can't imagine one of his sons doing something like that.
I like this other story.
The one you relate to, that sounds more like what really happened.
Well, I know my daddy knew exactly where it was in the bayou.
Well, did they ever get it out?
Yeah.
Did they ever get it out?
I think Prietta got it out when they took that old bridge out.
Yeah, that's right. And he put it in the city hall when on Jefferson Street. Now, I'd like to know where it disappeared.
I'm getting ready to say, where's that famous printing press?
I don't know where it's at. But that was the first printing press in St. Tammany Parish.
That's right.
I believe
it.
Melba has a printing press in her house. I must ask her, is that the one?
Number. Oh.
Robinson.
Oh, this one. I saw it when he brought it out.
It was all rusted up. I can remember when they dug it up.
Out of the bayou.
Mr. Jules, you have a story?
Well, I think I spoke my piece I made the last time. But old Tito, I've been knowing Tito since I've been a youngster. Me and Tito boxed together right across the street from Edgar Chalk's daddy when he run that store. I mean, you remember that? Huh? Yeah. He knocked the hell out of me out there. And then I didn't get enough. I got in the ring with old Raymond Dix, and boy, he pulled it on me too. I said, well, I've been whipped. I got it twice. I never will forget that. But you laid me out. I never will forget it. Because you were a little older than me, but I mean, I could box pretty good. And then when I was old man Michel had all them boxes. You remember used to be down at the bayou? Well, I used to spar with them, and then I went to V-Shacks, and I used to do a little sparring around with them guys. Oh, I believe was one of them, and they had a big dago. I never will forget him. I think he made something though after that. I don't. He got
and what used to train the named Joe
trying to sit in the back of your head, Jules. Turn around so we can see you.
And he ended up robbing the bank and go. He must not think it's that funny fight. He robbed the bank and he went to prison.
Al Moran used to come to shacks too.
Pedro used to box.
I remember Peter, oh Lord, let's see, I come to Mandeville in 1919, and I mean, that ain't been yesterday. When I went to church this morning, I got here's what gets me. I mean, you go to Mass on a Sunday morning, I see Cecile, and I mean, maybe no Rivers Galatas, and his wife Mimi running in dollars. That's about it. And the doggone church would be packed to the door.
And used to, if you went to Mass, you found a stranger, you said, who is that person? Come out of church. Who's that new person in church?
Nice
You don't know anybody in
fathers
there
in
anymore.
church. That's what I always think back how nice it was when there were just the five people, you knew them all.
Well, it was a meeting place. After Mass was over, everybody come outside and stood there half an hour, and they left a few at a time.
They don't do that so nice.
When Mass lets out, boy, zoom.
Hell, I mean, they run over you out there on Sunday morning.
Well, Joe, this is not old timey, this is new. They had another Mass on Sunday. So we went to the 9 o'clock Mass last week, thinking it wouldn't be so crowded. It was packed, it was standing. We said, well, we'll go to 10:30 Mass. Went 10:30 Mass, it was packed, it was standing. Where all these people coming from? Even an extra Mass didn't take care of.
Well, Mary Queen of Peace, you can't get in there sometime either, so there you go.
But they added another Mass, though.
Well,
Somebody told me that they closed the one out here. What is it? I think Our Lady.
not Mary Queen of Peace,
No.
my God, we got a great big, that's my church now. I don't go in Mandeville, I don't go in my mail and everything.
That's a highfalutin priest, that church
Oh,
out there.
they're
That's
wonderful,
just
they're
well
priests, they're wonderful.
highfalutin priest, our priest has got 4 limousines.
No, that's a horse with them He's got race horses, he's got, wait,
And then a
race
convertible.
horses.
Man, you ought to go out there on the American
I want to
Street
start
and see the
something.
garage.
All I know is that I helped build that church, helped build the school, now I'm building the church over here. It's fun.
I hear Father Don don't have any. People call Bring Community does it himself to the sick.
Right, well, that's nice.
I think it's fair enough.
Yeah. I like him, and I like the other, they both pilots, that's why I like them. They used to fly, and they like me too, because they knew Cal used to fly. They talked to me, this guy over here. Oh my God, I'm 35 years in Mandeville, and when he came, he didn't know who I was and where I came from, and I said, I don't know where I came from either. Well, when you go to he sent somebody out there for me to fill in, you know, for a
Somebody over there
I
that's
said, they don't know
got
me
plenty
yet.
of money.
They got two
That's right, yeah.
pieces of Father Don.
This laptop? I didn't know nothing much to talk about.
Oh, no, alligator rustling.
Yeah.
You ought to know something as long as you've been around here.
Tell us about your biggest alligator you ever killed.
Well, I can tell a little tale about me and my friend Eddie Shaw. One day we went alligator hunting, and right in the back of Genevieve's house. And the first thing we come across was napping turtle. And he starts stinking, you know. He's throwing his musk. Edgar says, what you going to do with that old stinking thing? I said, I'm going to take him home and cook him. He said, you better throw that old thing away. So the next day, he come, we went alligator up towards the marsh. And we come in, we were pretty tired and hungry. And I said, Edgar, you want to eat some stewed chicken? He says, yeah. So he says, I wouldn't mind. So Hazel, pretty good cook, she set out the dish, and I picked the chicken, the turtle's neck, because it was nice and white. And Edgar Shaw eat that, man, he enjoyed it, and I enjoyed mine. And when he got through, I says, how do you like the chicken, Edgar? He's, man, that was good. I said, that was a stinking turtle we caught.
They eat turtle leather.
He went hunt turtle under mayhaw trees ever since.
I was wanting to hear some of those stories about catching alligators. How did you catch those alligators?
Oh, I'd jump on them and ride them like a cowboy. I'd sit up on a hill and dive on and catch them, throw my knife out and kill them. Here's one of my partners, he can tell you something about it.
Yeah, but he's not tell the truth.
What you told Edgar, said, Edgar, I'm getting kind of old now. You get this next one because I can't handle them anymore. Edgar say when you quit handling them, we quit hunting alligators.
I went out one day.
There was one hole in there. There was a hole in there. And he looked around and he says, "There's a hole right here." And he started calling, and I saw the water coming on out like that. And he says, "You don't let his nose come out of the water. His eyes, you grab it before his eyes come out of the water." And I seen that coming on out. It looked like a shape like that coming out. I was leaning over. He must have thought I was getting ready to grab him. I didn't know whether I was going to grab him or not. And he said, "Don't touch him, don't touch him, don't touch him." That was a big old gator come out there, man, from here to 2 feet over there. Good thing I didn't grab him.
Good thing he didn't grab you.
I wasn't trying to. When I seen him, he'd get in the hole and jump in that hole like that to coax the gator up, and he grunted and see, but I don't know when he knew, but I seen him snatch underneath the water like that and then throw his leg over it, and he had the pocket knife open in his mouth. And he was quick on it. He slipped that knife right in the back of the head and cut that thing right there. And he did it enough to move back, but I guess he'd been doing it since he was a little kid.
That was a lot of fun, wasn't it, Edgar?
Hold on.
What was the other guy's name? Joe Freitas, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had the mic on.
That was an alligator catcher too.
There was so
Oh,
much grass in there. It was high, you couldn't wade through that alligator, that marsh grass, you know. And we went past the Lewisburg swamp and got to the marsh. And he says, "You know, there's some plenty big gators out in this hole." And it was hot. And we was getting ready to come home. And he says, "You know, if this thing would wind off, we could find them holes." And he struck a match, and I don't know whether he really intended lighting it or just messing around or what, but boy, zoom, that marsh went up. He says, "Let's get the hell out of here." We come on back home, and the game warden done went by there. Junior was a little fella.
No, it wasn't a game warden. It was, I believe it was Smith. Wasn't he taking care of the fire tower?
No, it was the game warden. It was the game warden come there and asked Junior, "Where's your daddy?" Junior said, "He's up the alligator He wanted to kill Junior for telling that man he was alligator. Well, how did Charles know what to tell a man? He didn't know he done
Yeah, but you never know what gators would cause the next day.
Went back in there and hit the edge of that swamp. Buck flies, man, that thing's getting bite. And the way we went in there, we went in with a pair of tennis shoes on, just pants and shirt. And you get the sweat in your clothes stick to it, and them buck flies can bite through that sweatshirt. And I carried a sack to put the hides in, and the hatchet. He carried a pole on his shoulder, and he carried a gun, the shotgun. And he'd be ahead of me. I had to follow him because he knew how to walk on that grass, keep from sinking down. And then one of my legs would go through this much down in the mud, metal and nothing there. And he had enough to holler, "Are you coming, Edgar?" Yeah, I'm coming. We get into that marsh. And he said, "Rock, how many we going to get today?" I said, "I don't know. 8. He said, 8? I said, "Yeah." Yeah, he said, "You can't carry them out." I said, "If you get 8 of them, I'll carry them out." I don't remember how many we got that
We
day.
got 10 big ones.
We went in that swamp, and he skinned, I helped him skin, but he skinned a whole lot faster. I was too slow. And got them gators out of there. And that's what I keep hollering at me. He would all that alligator hides on my back in that sack. And he'll holler, "You coming, Edgar?" Oh, but he did outside of I got in that grass and head. It kind of supported him a little bit. Cliff give us $2 a football. What did you?
Let me tell you what I remember about the alligator business. Mr. John and Hazel. Hazel had a magazine. She was looking at it, and looking at some alligator shoes. And Mr. Jones thought he didn't know anything about alligator shoes, so he went into Morris that night with his light, and he shined the big game. And he's straddling just like he's saying he does, and he fought him for an hour. And he says, by God, he's got me whipped. And he got back to the house. He told Hazel, he says, they can say what they want that book, but that one I wrestled didn't have any shoes.
We was up in Big Branch there and hunting his alligators, and there was a pair up on the bank fighting. So I didn't know what was going on. I shined that light up there, and both of them hit the water. So I told the girl, I said, let's go this way. Went that way, and I saw him. So I slipped up there, and I shot him. Well, when you shoot an alligator, he turns belly up, you know, and I just grabbed the front leg and back leg and put him on in the boat. I said, let's go back the other way now. And went back the other way and never could find him. So first thing you know, I heard something scratching in the boat. And I looked there, put that light down there, and all I did was scratch the back of his head off, stunned him. And I said, good God, here we are in a boat here with an 8-foot alligator. So I told him, I said, paddle up to the shoreline, paddle to the shoreline, and just show you what a person can do when they're scared. 16-foot skip, motor and him and everything, and I pulled that whole thing up on the shore. So I told him, I said, I'm going to make a double half hitch now and lay on his head. I said, you take the gun. I said, I'm going to raise his head up with the oar. I said, slip that double half hitch on there. Well, boy, when I did that, that alligator come out that boat. I went up that bank, the alligator went behind me. I went on one side of the tree, and the alligator went on the other. And that Frenchman was right there. When that rope pulled me back, I put the light back there, man, that Frenchman shot that alligator. I'm telling you, I never saw us scared in my life.
We did the same. No, we did the same thing. Asked Horace Broomfield about that. He'd like to turn us over in the swamp.
Small pirogue.
And we was in a small pirogue. Shot him and just crippled him. And man, he was doing some turning. He was about to sink us.
After that, every time I shot one, when I put him in the boat, buddy, I took that knife and cut him behind the head.
Yeah.
Piggy told me to shoot one time. He called it up, and I thought it was these eyes I was shooting.
He shot his nose.
Shot the tip into the nose, come up, I thought it was his eyes. I scored a boom. That thing jumped, went, you messed up, you messed up. He'll never come out of that hole again. Never come out of that hole. You shot him in the nose. I said, no, I shot him in the eyes. He said, that was the nose. And he said he'll never come up. He still calling a little while later, and then water comes out of that hole, pushing that. You could see it was pushing the water in and coming back up. He shot it that time. I said, I'm too quick on the trigger there, shooting him in the nose. The nose is the first thing comes up. I thought it was his eyes. And that was a big gator too.
We were hunting them down there in the marsh, and we shoved that pole down there. Well, we waited until the marsh got dry, you know. Then you could find the hole. Went to the hole.
Yeah.
So we shoved that pole down there, didn't touch it. So we decided we were going to tie 2 poles together now. So we tied the 2 poles together and hooked that alligator and went to pulling him up. The poles come up loose.
And let the other pole in the hole.
Wait, said, I'll dive down that hole and get it. As he was diving down the hole, that big alligator passed him coming.
Miss Genevieve, you want to tell us some story?
I don't think I have any like all these.
You ain't been alligator hunting lately, have you?
One thing I remember about the beach, we used to go crabbing when we were kids. And Harris and J.D. always made me shove the skiff while they would throw the cast net. And so I did the dirty work, but I know we'd come home sometimes with the whole skiff load. Well, I don't know how we got them home, the horse and wagon, but we got them there. Don't get them like that anymore.
Never see it again in your life.
No. Kiki, you remember I used to go with my twin sister and Aunt Jenny too. We'd go out there crabbing. He'd come home and tell us we weren't going to catch any crabs. He wanted us to get out that lake we were catching these crabs. We listened to him and go home. And we found out he'd go around right where we passed and still on. And he's not going to get any crabs today. So
You remember when they had the lake road all the way to Covington?
Huh?
Yeah. My daddy made a mini trip with a horse and wagon up to Covington with a load of shrimp, with a little old dirt road, you know, the Lovers Lane Road? Sidney Smith called it Lovers Lane. That's where it got its name from, Lovers Lane. Sidney Smith said they had a pine tree like a U. It broke off, you know, and it grew like a U. And he said, that's Lovers Lane. And it stuck. Lovers Lane has been that name ever since.
School, the bus used to go that way.
That's right.
And we put a sign on the bridge.
Lovers Lane, one on driver stop. He's the one that to give that street the name, Lovers Lane. Sidney Smith, y'all's brother.
Oh, brother.
Yeah.
Oh.
Y'all's
But you know
brother.
your dad? Your dad.
I thought you were talking about my dad.
No, it was your brother.
We used to go to Covington every Saturday evening.
Well, I tell you how far back that Lover's Lane name goes. Joseph Smith used to court Evelyn Spell. She lived in Chinchupa. And Joseph Smith used to leave Lewisburg walking to go court her at Chinchupa, Evelyn Spell.
Yeah.
And that was Lover's Lane because they used to walk to Lewisburg holding hands. And funny joke about that old man Joe never bought a pair of socks until he got married. That was the first pair of socks he ever put on when he got married. How true that was, I don't know. That was just hearsay. You know that. But that Lover's Lane got, and you talk about that pine tree?
Yeah.
That was towards the other end. And
Back
come up,
to
then had it, then did it like that, and then went up.
Yeah.
I can remember that tree.
Lanny, do you have that article that I gave you out the paper about that railroad?
No, I didn't bring them.
You didn't bring it? Well, in that article, Ella, they had a name of a man, and he was still living, according to the paper, that lived, it sounded like in your old home.
In the, where the shadows were
Yeah.
Kennedy.
Who was that headed before? Your daddy? That,
I don't know what was the name of the people that had it before.
but he
But
said,
that old fella, a while back there, somebody told me they met him, and he said oh God, he's about 100 and some
he
years
must
old.
be. He
And
walked,
he said he was born in that house
Yeah.
over there.
and he used to walk from Chinchupa, where the institute
That
was,
must have been roasted as old,
to his house.
man.
He lived over here.
We didn't give him a
Down in
chance.
the 30s,
We
maybe
wrote
back
off.
before at his daddy. And but I can't remember what his name was. And then
I go to a visit there, but, you know, when you get 72.
Did y'all own that house before you moved over here to live?
Yeah, oh yes, yes.
don't know what
Daddy
he-
bought that house in
Lenny has the paper
1903.
and with his name in it.
And
There's an article in the paper last year.
Well, how old, he didn't say how old he was when he lived in the house.
No,
He said he was old.
that was before the street was on, so he must have been way back there. But he's still living.
I wish I could think of his name. His relatives, you remember when, right there, West Beach Grocery, they had a little bit of grocery?
Yeah.
Well, that man with his family lived there for a while.
Weiss, yeah.
Yeah, well, but was his name Weiss?
Yeah.
Weiss, yeah, okay. Well, he was the one I'm talking about who lived in who was born in that house.
No, that wasn't the name Weiss, was it, Lenny? You remember the
No,
article?
no, I don't remember what it was.
It wasn't
Well,
Weiss.
they could go, well, this has been a long time ago, so it could be. He was 100 then, so I know he's not living now.
No, he was
God,
living in 91
72.
when this article was written, came out in the paper last year. 92.
Father Minio bought the
Never see that yet,
Chinchupa
right?
nephew property in 1898. for the Minyo.
Bought it or
He bought it.
was donated?
He bought it to make the home for the nephew in 1898.
I thought the Spell family donated it.
No,
No, Spell didn't donate it. Spell sold it to
The Archdiocese,
well, it was one of the Spells. The Spells didn't only the Spell's daughter married somebody else. Started with a P. The name started with a P. Pullier, I think it was. And that's the well, it was still coming out of the Spell family, but Pullier, in other words, the Spell's son-in-law sold it to Father Minyo.
It wasn't Poirier. They have the name spelled wrong. It's Poirier.
Yeah.
That was my grandfather. Married Elizabeth
Well,
Bowles.
in the book it's Pullier.
Yeah.
But
it's spelled 4 different ways at the church down there.
Yeah. Pullier.
Well, I want to ask you something. Do you remember the old priest that was there, had that big old long beard, looked like Santa Claus? When the
Before
kings...
the Macdonald.
Who? Well, I don't think that didn't ring a bell. But the king at the time, Mr. King was there, and he